Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be showing you how to change the spark plugs on a 2004 Toyota Matrix XR with a 1.8 liter engine. Same thing really will apply to pretty much any car that has spark plugs. The basics are all the same. So this should help you out in any of those, but this is specific to that car. Also, this engine was found in the Pontiac Vibe 2003 to 2008, Toyota Matrix 2003 to 2008, and Toyota Corolla 2003 to 2008. They were all pretty much the same. Everything from the frame down was pretty much the same on those for the most part, and it was just like they threw a body on top of it and they called it a Corolla, a Vibe, or a Matrix. Pretty easy job. There's not a whole lot that you're going to need. Obviously, you're going to need some new spark plugs. You're going to need a spark plug wrench. You're going to need a 10 millimeter to take the engine cover off. You've got these two Acorn nuts right here that are 10 millimeter. This one doesn't have them anymore, but there's normally little pop clips that you pop out with a screwdriver back there. And that's about it. I know for me, when I put spark plugs in, I like to put a tiny bit of anti-seize, a copper anti-seize, on the threads to make it easier to get out later, especially in these aluminum block heads, or aluminum head engines. I don't know why, I've just had bad luck with spark plugs a couple of times in my life. Cross-threading for some reason, or me getting a hold of some car that somebody's worked on, usually that's happened to. So I always just put a tiny bit of that stuff on, and it really helps. It seems to make a difference for me. You don't have to. It's just something I do. The spark plugs we're going to be using today are the Autolite Platinums. This is part number AP3924. Of course, you get a box of 4. There's what the spark plug itself looks like. These platinum tip plugs have a smaller electrode. That's the part right there. See if I can get this to focus on the electrode part right there. See it? There you go. That's where the spark actually occurs between these 2 points. The platinum is a longer lasting, harder material than your copper spark plugs or your standard spark plugs. So you put these in, theoretically you won't have to worry about it for another 100,000 miles or so. Now, out of the box, do not assume that these are gapped correctly. They have a rough gapping right around 40 to 45 thousandths. But it's going to be pretty rough. Most of the time for most engines that will work, but not always, so you want to make sure. This engine, if I remember right, had specifications where from 39 thousandths to 51 thousandths was acceptable. Preferred, the optimal setting was 44 thousandths. If I were going to put copper plugs that do have a tendency to wear down over time, I would probably start in the 40 to 42 thousandths range, and as they wear over time, they will pass through that optimum up to the 50 thousandths range. These cars all have coil unplug, which gives you a nice strong spark over a large range, so you don't have to be as picky about it. But since these don't really wear the same, they hardly wear at all over 100,000 miles, I do want to set it closer to that optimum. Now, to do that, I'm going to use one of these little doodads. It's a feeler gauge. You can get these in 2 varieties. This one like this, and then they make a little circle shaped one that just has a graduated slide that goes between the different settings. Most all of these, when you get them, you'll look at it and you won't find, you'll say, I don't see a 44 or 45 thousandths on there. Don't worry. This one, if you'll look, has markings on there in millimeter and inches, and it's the inches that we want. I'm going to take a 25 and a 19 and just combine them, and I've got 44 thousandths. I want to check this, insert it in here just so it kind of grabs gently. You don't want it to grab hard enough not to go through, and you don't want it to wiggle in there. If it wiggles in there, take the end of your thing here and just tap on this lightly until you get it down to where you want. If it's too tight, what I'll usually do is try to, separate this out, maybe a wedge one in there, and then just lift up on it just a hair. You just want to put a little bit of pressure on it, and you'll feel when you've got it lifted up to just that right spot. You may go a little bit further, which means you got to tap it down again, but that's fine. Keep going and you'll get it right in that range. Do that for all your plugs, because this one I checked out of the box was about 42 thousandths, which was close enough to work with, but I do want to open it up just a hair to that 44, and I'm going to do that to all the rest of them, and then we'll get cracking on getting this engine cover off so we can do the plugs themselves. Alrighty, we have gapped our spark plugs properly, so now I'm going to remove this engine cover. I'm just undoing these two acorn nuts, and we'll set this off to the side. And here are our spark plug coils, and you see that there? Let me should get up here and show you real good. These are the coils. They have clips that clip onto them. You're going to want to push down on the back of that, wiggle it out. See if I can do this one-handed. There it goes. It just unclips like that. These have been on there a while, so be careful with them. Might need to use a little encouragement from a screwdriver. Let me get these last two with two hands. Alright, once those are disconnected and your wiring harness here lays them all in the right position so that you can't get them mixed up. Look right here, there's a nut, and right there, there's a bolt. You're going to have to take those out to get this little wire management piece to set off to the side, because this won't lift up. These last couple here, I don't think will lift out properly until you get that out of the way. So, now let me set you up right here. Maybe you can see, maybe you can't. We'll find out together. So, this is not on very tight. Just set that up here out of the way. See, now I can just kind of pick this whole thing up if I need to and set it out of the way. What I need to do next is get these coils off though. And those aren't on very tight either. This is just plastic, so you don't want to over tighten these. You just want to snug them down. So we're going to take that out. Do that for all four of these. This is a nice little area to set these because it's like a tray. If you need to, you can even set it back further, which is a deeper tray. But it's nice to have that little area to work. While you're doing this, it's not a bad idea to inspect your coil packs. They should be nice and flat. If they're bulging up, that coil pack may be going bad. And all you do is just take it and pull up. That's your coil pack. No more spark plugs, just a coil pack. Look at it to see if there's a ton of oil. It's not totally uncommon to see a little bit. The little seals. This valve cover gasket, the seals there can wear and get a lot of oil on this and leave oil down inside the hole. So you want to kind of look out for that. And I can take these all out at once. It's not going to hurt anything. You don't really have to keep track of the order, but I like to. Whoa, a little bit of oil, not much. We'll wipe all that down to make sure it's nice and clean. That one's even nicer looking. That one's in pretty good shape too. So now this whole thing will kind of sit back out of our way. And we can get down in there really easy. Now I'm going to find something to hold this back. But notice I've got dirt and stuff in here. This is where having a vacuum cleaner or some compressed air would come in really handy, because we don't want to take the spark plugs out and then have dirt fall down into the cylinder head. So we want to make sure that's nice and clean where these spark plugs go down in there. Down in these holes. See if I can get a light down in there. My light's caught up. You can kind of see down in there. But I want to get all that dirt out of there. So I'm going to clean this stuff out and push this off to the side a little bit, and we'll come right back. Alrighty, I have everything all cleaned off. I got the vacuum on this, and I used a little compressed air. So now I need to go in with my extension, my ratchet, and my 5/8 spark plug socket. And you might be asking, what is the deal with the yellow tape on here? If you're like me, every spark plug socket you own, the little rubber piece inside is missing. When you undo your spark plugs, you've got to pick them up out of that hole, and there's a little rubber grommet that usually sits down in your spark plug socket here, down at the very end, where the tip of that spark plug fits in there and it clamps in place so you can pull it out. Well, this ain't there. So here's what you do. You just take some electrical tape, and I used a bright yellow so you guys can see it, and just wrap one edge down into here. Might need to double it up a little bit, but we're just increasing the thickness of that. And what that does is it basically provides a little clamp that clamps down on that spark plug. So here we are. We're going to get this off. The engine is cold. Take your time and go slow. If it feels like the spark plugs aren't coming out easy, warm the car up and actually want to work on it with a warm head. The aluminum will expand and release away from that spark plug. Might make it easier to come out. Going back in, you've got to be even more careful because you don't want to double thread it, but look at that. Oh, and these had the double plugs. These were actually pretty good plugs in there. Check that out. These are Bosch Platinum double tip plugs. And it seems like there's some dielectric compound that was in here too. Maybe that's oil. It smells like it could be oil too. So, that is awfully nice. There were good plugs in this to begin with. That is a good sign that this engine was well taken care of. So, we're going to take one of our replacement Autolites. We're going to put, and like I said, you do not have to do this. This is just something I like to do. And I'm just putting a tiny bit on those threads put that down in there. See, that holds in place really well, doesn't it? And put that carefully back down in the center. And start putting it back in. And it feels like it's threading in nice and easy. It's not cross threading. And if it's going in nice and easy, and the threads are better on this, I can feel, than they are on that Bosch. So I want to put that in just until it bottoms out, and this has a crush washer on it, which I'll take one out of the box here and show it to you in just a second. Oh yeah, that's going in really easy. A nice thing about that anti-seize I like is also it helps lubricate it, so it helps these go in easier, especially when this block is cold. Okay, it just bottomed out, and I just want to turn it a little bit more just to seat that crush washer nicely. Maybe 1/8 of a turn is all. That is in. I can take this boot, since this has got just a tiny bit of oil on it. I'm going to grab me a rag here, wipe it off. And I did tighten these 2 nuts down here. That'll help that seal stay. I'm going to take this, push it back in with my clip for the wires going this way. And I just want to push that back down on. And at this point, if I want to, I can go ahead and put my nut back on. Tighten it till it bottoms out, and then just a tiny bit more. Just enough to snug it down. That's all that's needed on that. Now, the crush washer that I was talking about, let's get one of these. Actually, you got the old one here I can use. Look on that old one, there's a washer right here. It's a crush washer. When you put it down in the hole, it crushes this to form a seal. Your oil pan gasket may have the same one. I think I'm going to hold on to these plugs too. These are nice plugs, so I'll keep these. And but basically, all I've got to do is go back and do the same thing for this. Put my coil packs back on, put my bolts back on, put my wiring harness back in place here. And actually, I don't want to put my coil packs back on until I get the coil pack or the wiring harness in place for the rest of the job. I'll put my I'll change my spark plug, then set this down in place, and then I'll get my coil packs on. Put my engine cover back on, and then we'll fire it up and see how it sounds. Spark plugs are all back in. I'm just going through now, putting the coil packs in. I've got this rail back in place here. Wipe my coil packs down. Oh, you know what? I got to loosen that. Here's how you guys can learn from my mistakes. I got to keep this loose to be able to wiggle these back ones in. Got excited. My daughter came by to take a look at it for the first time. She has not seen it. She was very excited. Okay, that one is started. Wipe this down. Set that down in there. Okay, now we can put this stuff back on. And you can see how quickly this is to do this. It's not difficult at all. Snug, snug,
snug. Snug. Get this one on. And I'm just pushing these down to make sure they go on, get seated onto the spark plug good. Clipped on, clipped on, clipped on, clipped on. Now, we shall grab this. Line everything up. And again, just snug this on. Alrighty. Let me grab the keys. Set the light off to the side. And we'll fire it up and see how she sounds. Nice and smooth. That's what we want. There we go. That's all there is to changing spark plugs. If I can do this quickly, you can do this too. Just be careful what you're doing. Take your time. And make sure if you don't know where things go back, if it's a weird, one of those weird things, take pictures or something before you start and as you're going along too. So, get your spark plugs changed too.